Welcome back, everybody. Once again, we are taking a look at the Gothic Iceberg. And last time, we observed Tier 1, the barrier. High up in the skies, we found some nice entries, but nothing really to write home about. This time, we are moving deeper, and the next stop is the old citadel on top of the mountain. Get yourself some meatbug ragu and a nice cold rice schnapps, because it's about to get a little more intriguing. Let's begin. The Mighty Alien Dwarf. This entity is the author of some Easter eggs in the Gothic franchise. Behind the Orc Wall in Gothic 2 in the Old Mine Valley, you can find a sign that says, and I quote, "Okay man, you made it behind the Great Orc Wall. As you see, the story of the orcish hordes behind this wall is a complete fake. There is nothing more to find here. This place is abandoned. It's the end of the world. But me, a mighty alien dwarf which not depends to this game's story and which name is not of public interest here, wanted to warn you. You've been tricked to believe a story which is not true. They want to get you. Do not believe in anything they say. Keep your eyes open." End of quote. This obviously doesn't mean that dwarves are canon, nor that the text and its implications are real, but more on that in a later entry. The Room with No Doors. This is an Easter egg in Gothic 3 that can be found above the entrance to Zubin's palace. You will find a message there that says, "You found the hidden message in the room without doors. I hope you feel happy now. TMAD. No, I'm not dead. I watch you." This message is written by the mighty alien dwarf as well, Undead Mud. The fan-favorite character Mud from Gothic 1.
Hey man, new here? I haven't seen you before. I'll join you for a while if you don't mind. I'm sure you'll need a friend.
Well, not really, but via insert codes in the Marvin mode, you can cheat an undead version of Mud into existence. What was the question? Once you leave the Marvin mode by typing 42 while in the character screen, the message, "What was the question?" will appear on screen to confirm that you are no longer in cheat mode. Just like 42, the code to exit Marvin mode, it is a reference to the movie The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in which the supercomputer Deep Thought is calculating for a very long time, searching for the meaning of life. The answer to the ultimate question, for which civilizations waited 7.5 million years in the movie, is apparently 42. But in the end, they forgot what the great question was. Soulstone. Upon killing the last boss of Gothic 2, the Undead Dragon, you can pick up a soulstone from its body, an item that has no use in the game. Maybe it was just a reference to the soulstones in the Diablo universe, or they had plans for this item in Gothic 3, which were ultimately never realized. Dragon elements make no sense. So, what are the traditional 4 elements? Water, fire, air, and earth. The dragons, however, supposedly being representatives of each element, are of fire, earth, water, albeit in frozen form, and swamp? Yeah, this one is a bit silly. But imagine an air dragon. Air dragon sounds like the name of a corny glam metal band. I'd reserve that one. Yarkandar Car. On top of Yarkandar's canyon near the library, you will find the body of an old car. With it, a note that says something along the lines of, "I always wanted to make a game with cars." Well, I guess whoever wrote that just did. Sea Monster. If you swim too far out into the sea in Gothic 2, a small cinematic starts playing which shows the hero getting eaten by sea monsters. Take a look. Hidden note. Well, to be honest, I don't know what that is. This is way too specific and I couldn't find anything. There are other hidden notes, but they're already on this iceberg, so let's just move on. Gilbert. Hey, I made a video about Gilbert. Check it out. It's called The Sad Stories from the Colony. He's a poor hermit living in the mountains of the Valley of Mines in Gothic 1. He left the old camp because he had trouble with the guards, and in Gothic 2 you will find a letter written by him. Gilbert wanted to escape after the fall of the barrier and likely got killed on the way out, but his true fate, however, is unknown. Orcish hordes behind the wall are a ruse. Yes, technically this is true, but I think the reason for that is somewhat different. Look, back in the day, computers weren't all too powerful, so the developers had to save resources that the game would run kinda smoothly. Cutting off the whole east of the colony with an Orcish wall seemed to be a nice way to make sure that it runs smoothly, and it also gives you a nice insight on how the Orcs wage war. In terms of lore, however, I think that there are indeed quite a bunch of orcs behind it. Unused enemies. A panther and alligator exist in the game files, and it seems that they were created for the expansion pack Night of the Raven. You can even cheat them into the game. Once you know that, the small line by Alligator Jack is actually somewhat funny.
What is it you hunt?
Only alligators, usually. But they're no good for eating. And there aren't any left around here anyway.
Gothic the Comic. This comic was promotional material for the release of Gothic 1. A physical copy of it is quite a rarity these days, but it is indeed non-canonical. However, you can read it online. Just take a look into the gothicarchive.org. Hidden Piranha Bytes logos. Piranha Bytes has a few hidden logos in the third game. One is on a watchtower in Vanguard, and the other one on the border of Miltana and Nordmar. Piranhas are watching you. This message, along several other lines, appears if you trigger the sea monster cutscene when the Marvin mode is activated. Take a look. The hero's crime. Well, the reason why the nameless hero was thrown into the colony is one of the big mysteries of the game. It was intentionally left out so the players can make it up in their minds. However, there is a novel about Gothic which was written before the release of the game called The Sleeper's Ban, and in it we can find out what this mysterious crime was. Let me read it to you. It had just been a week ago when he returned from an extensive colliery tour with people he thought of as his friends at the time. In the early morning, he was awakened by the city guards who invaded his chamber, followed by the sleep-drunk figures of his terrified parents. Astonished, he noted that he was suspected to have stolen a magically almost valuable amulet from the treasury of one of the city councils, and his astonishment turned into horror when, behind a tapestry, that very gem was revealed. Well, apparently the nameless hero got set up by his own stepbrother. Risen is a Gothic 3 sequel. Personally, I don't like this theory, and I see both universes as being separated, but initially it was intended that both games are connected, especially if you take the Adonos ending of Gothic 3 into consideration. There is an abandoned storyboard for the intro cinematic of Risen, where familiar faces can be seen, but we will get more into detail in a later entry of this iceberg. Jowood and Piranha Bytes IP conflict. IP stands for Intellectual Property, so in this case, the Gothic franchise. Apparently, after Gothic 3's horrible release, there were some problems regarding the further development. Since Jowood had the rights to the IP, Piranha Bytes could no longer develop a Gothic game. Years later, the rights were bought by THQ, and now we get a remake. Gothic 5. Back in the day, Piranha Bytes registered trademarks for the Gothic franchise. Well, it seems they registered quite a lot of them, and Gothic 5 was one of those trademarked titles. Aubergine's Final Prophecy. In the port city of Gothic 2, we can find a peculiar man on the marketplace whose name is Aubergine ibn Jadir ibn Omar Khalid ben Haji Ashari. He's a seer, clairvoyant, astrologer, and tobacco salesman. Every chapter you can pay him to see into the future, and he will tell you certain things about the upcoming chapter. In the last chapter, however, his message is very cryptic. Have a listen.
Darkness pervades the land. Evil will triumph. The king shall lose his war against the orcs. You shall return, but you shall not find peace. That's all. There's nothing more I can see.
Well, that sounds way more interesting whatever we got in Gothic 3. Sadly, another retcon. Dragon Lords. The Dragon Lords were ancient and mythical warriors who hunted and killed dragons. They wore the sturdiest armors reinforced with magical ore and fought with weapons crafted from the same ore and imbued with the blood of those creatures. These guys are referenced in a book that is written by Xardas, the Almanac. It can be found deep within the monastery before you head off to Ulduroth. Saturus' plan wouldn't have worked.
I was sent by Saturus. We need your help. The Magicians of Water plan to use their big ore mound.
The ore mound is not the solution.
It isn't?
No.
Well, this is what Xardas tells us in Gothic 1. Since Xardas knows a lot about the barrier, he might be right with this theory. On the other hand, I doubt that anyone in the Gothic universe ever made a massive mound of magical ore explode. A G is an O, a T is an H, and an I is a C. This is a line spoken by the hermit in Night of the Raven, the one you can give clothes to. Once he teaches you how to read the old language, this little Easter egg is spelling Gothic.
Well, it's quite simple. A G is an O, a T is an H, and an I is a C. If you understand that, the rest is quite logical.
Giving Valentino's ring to Corrigan. In Corina City, a guy called Regis tells you about a man called Valentino from the Upper Quarter, who he beat up some time ago.
Who did you fight with?
With a fellow named Valentino. He often hangs out in the tavern near the temple. I'm not usually a violent person, but that guy needed his face rearranged in the worst way.
Well, what have we here?
Have you no manners? That's disgusting. Oh, is this filthy rabble? Haven't you a job where you ought to be? But I suppose no one would miss a down-at-heel fella like you, hey? Well, if you had as much gold as I do, you wouldn't have to work either. But you'll never be that rich.
I see I'm gonna have lots of fun with you.
You can do the same, get a nice amount of gold, a key to his chest, and while you're at it, you can try out Igna's Scroll of Oblivion on him. If you go back to Regis and tell him about the encounter, he gives you a little keepsake that once belonged to the arrogant snob.
I gave him a sound beating.
He deserved it. Here, I found this ring on him when our little disagreement had been settled. You're welcome to pass it on to the next person who beats him up.
After that, Corrigan, the owner of the tavern in the Traders District, will have a special dialogue. And after that, you can hand him over Valentino's ring.
Valentino was unable to pay his bar tab last night. He was blathering something about having been robbed and paying me later. I was really.
And what did you do?
Well, I gave him a good thrashing. What else?
Here, take this ring.
What? I don't understand.
It used to belong to Valentino. You're welcome to pass it on to the next person who tans his hide.
Fire mages can see Xardus' tower. Well, sure, nowadays we can see the whole valley with a beautiful DX11 renderer, but back in the day, or if you play without any mods, the distant regions are shrouded in fog, limiting your view distance drastically. Even though you can't see it when standing in the castle's courtyard, up on the watchtower you can definitely spot it. But yeah, they definitely should hide Xardus' tower better in the remake. Sunken huts in the new camp. Another shameless self-advertisement. Take a look at the video The New Camp from the Gothic lore series on my channel. In that video I have a theory that before the dam was built in the new camp, people already started building huts in the small valley, but then Homer, the Rice Lord, and Lee were like, no, we're gonna build a dam and the whole area will be flooded. It's for the greater good. And then some poor bastards became either homeless or developed guilds. Main quest New Camp Bias is probably referring to the situation that unfolds in Chapter 4 of Gothic 1. Spoilers ahead for a game that is more than 23 years old. Well, if you are part of the old camp, they are going to kick you out, and your only choice then is to join the mercenaries or water mages.
Traitor? To think we let a thing like you join the guards. Blah!
Hey, what are you talking about, Fletcher?
You're in with that new camp scum, aren't you?
Hold on.
I guess you must have thought we wouldn't figure it out, huh?
Ho! Hold your horses.
No, you hold on! Hold on to your head, cause you're going to be missing it soon! Die, traitor!
I have been exiled from the old camp because I have helped you.
You don't belong to the old camp any longer? Then I welcome you to our community.
The sect camp is excluded from this decision.
How can I become a Templar?
First, you will have to serve as a novice for a while, to prove that you truly believe in the Sleeper.
I can kinda see why that is. You know, the Brotherhood has a very hard time in Chapter 4 with Iberion, their leader, dead, and Colom, with a lot of Templars and novices just gone. I don't really see them having the need to recruit new people now that their camp basically is in shambles and they realize that they are worshipping a big old demon. Swamps of Verant. The book, The Battle of Verant, that you can find in Gothic 1 in the library of the Water Mages, tells the story of how Roba conquered the desert realm. One passage describes the cavalry not gaining any ground because of the deep and swampy soil they fought on. This doesn't necessarily mean that Verant had swamps. Maybe it rained and the desert sand was so soaked with water and blood that the horses' legs sunk into the ground. Although this theory would be more in line with the actual Verant that we got, I think it is a shame that these lore bits weren't respected. I think that swamps would have been a great addition to Gothic 3. You see, the desert is very vast and its landscape is getting boring very quickly. I think the game would have profited by having more biomes like swamps and canyons, but that is a topic for another day. Sleeper Minecrawler similarities. Both creatures have some characteristics that are pretty similar. Their head shape is comparable, they have mandibles, and they walk on multiple legs, although their body shape is different and the neck of the sleeper is longer than that of the crawler. The eyes, however, are interesting. While the final crawlers have very different ones, the early versions of the Minecrawler warrior has eyes that are akin to the ones of the archdemon. Both are green and evil looking. In the end, the crawlers have a very insectoid look, while the sleeper has a more fleshy, Cthulhu-like appearance, for the lack of a better word. For a very long time I thought they really do look alike, but the more you analyze them, the more differences come to light. Dexter's dialogue without Night of the Raven. Dexter and his goons exist in Gothic 2 Classic, but obviously the questline surrounding the missing people and the connection to the former Ore Baron is missing. Take a look at what happens if you talk to him without the add-on.
Oh man, you'd have done better not to show up here. You're the wrong man in the wrong place.
So much for you, lowlife.
And yet again, we reached the end of another entry in the Gothic Iceberg. If you want to see more stuff like this, please hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And with that said, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.